Hello, everyone, and welcome. Super excited to be part of this discussion. My name is Samira Searcy, and I am the military project manager for Aston Carter. I've been working with Aston Carter for about a year and a half now after retiring from the Army after 20 and a half years. I am a female, and my pronouns are she and her. My age is 43, but don't tell anyone. In my race, I am an African American female, and I have a medium length hair color. It's a salt and pepper tone, and I'm also dark skin female. I am wearing a white and black polka dot buttoned up shirt, and I am a total and disabled veteran after serving in the military. Super excited to meet you all. Roger, you want to go ahead and start with your introduction?
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Roger Torres. I work for Hire Heroes USA, former Army veteran, did 20 years, retired. Um, super excited to be here today. Um, my position is with the Junior Enlisted team. We help veterans with their professional resumes, but we'll get into that later. My gender is male. I'm 44. Race is Hispanic. Um, my my height is 65 inches, and basically my skin tone is I'm light skinned. I have a red shirt on today, my Hire Heroes logo, and disability. I'm also 100% permanent total disabled veteran, but just super excited to be here. Thank you.
Thanks, Roger. Chelsea, you want to go ahead so we can get to know you?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Chelsea Schroeder. I am a transition specialist at Hire Heroes USA on the Serving Spouses team. I'm a military spouse. My husband is active duty Space Force. I am female. I'm 30 years old. I have really long brown hair, currently wearing a charcoal gray pullover with our logo on it. And I'm really excited to talk with everyone.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for the introduction, guys. It was really it's one transparency moment. It was the first time I've ever done a descriptive intro like that. Have you guys experienced that before?
I'd have to say that's my first time, but probably won't be the last time.
Yeah, absolutely. I've done quite a few webinars, and that's the first time I've ever done one. So it was really neat to try something new.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you guys crushed it, and I really appreciate being able to start this conversation. I think that there are, as a veteran serving in the military, it's always great to come back and to have conversations that focus on the community and being part of conversations that really focus on improving the quality of life. So I want to start the question with you, Roger. Why is Veteran Day important to you?
Personally, Veterans Day for me is a reflection. Previously I'd said that I'd served 20 years, and I was so happy to do my time. But then I retired out in 2018, joined in 1996. Raised my right hand, took the oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States, just like so many veterans past and present. The It doesn't matter if you serve 2 years or 30, 40 years. Everybody has a story. I think that's what makes us all unique. To this day, I have a group thread that I text a bunch of buddies. Some are in Jersey, some are in Tennessee, some are in Texas, where I'm at, and we just have a good old time. We talk to each other, and just check up on each other. Basically, I got your six. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, put them in the thread. We'll address them as we can. But I think you know it it's really good to get out there and just shake a veteran's hand and just say, hey, thank you, for your service, because you don't you yeah, we celebrate a special day, but honestly, every day is like a Veterans Day to me, because if I see somebody out there and they thank me for their service, I reciprocate, and I tell them thank you as well, because I appreciate their service.
I love that. And I love the fact that you highlighted that regardless of time in service, it's still relevant. I think that there are people who feel that their time is discredited because they've only served 2 years or 4 years. But at the end of the day, it's service, and we all chose to raise our right hand. So thank you for highlighting that. Chelsea, what about
You're
you
welcome.
as a military spouse? How do you feel about, or why is Veterans Day important to you?
Yeah, I think for me personally, I didn't grow up in a military family. The only experience I had, my grandfather served in the Korean War. And so he didn't really talk much about it. And so it wasn't really something I had a lot of knowledge about until I met my husband, and I kind of was thrown into the military lifestyle. And my father-in-law is actually also in military service, and he's currently in the Air National Guard. And so that long line of service on my in-laws side is really important. My husband is, I believe, fifth generation military, so they have a really long history of military in their family. And so for me, Veterans Day is really the chance to learn, learn what others' experiences are like in the military, like Roger touched on, regardless of how long you served. I'm still learning a lot about what the lifestyle is. And every day for us at Hire Heroes feels like Veterans Day because we are constantly interacting with our clients who are at so many different points in their life. They're either still in, they're looking to get out for whatever circumstance or whatever reason, or they've been out for a really long time. Regardless of what their situation is, we're still thanking them for their service and working with them to help them in their next phase.
Yeah, I loved everything that you said, Chelsea, and I can relate so much to that, especially in the fact of still learning, right? Even after serving in the military, I tell you what, I've done more research and I've done more information about, or learned more information about the military as a whole and the community as a whole than when I did in the military. So when you say every day it feels like Veterans Day, I completely echo that. But again, it's different. For me, I think that I have a different appreciation for it because Veterans Day when I was serving, it was work. I went to work, I put on my uniform, and that's what I did. But now, having the realization of what service meant and being able to reflect back on my service, it absolutely has a different flavor for me. And there is definitely an appreciation and a more and to me it just holds a different spot in my heart right now because it's just different now. I don't know if you feel different about that, Roger, being that Veterans Day is different than you going to work.
I agree with you. I mean, you know, putting on the uniform for so long and then, eventually getting out. I see it, every day that I go in my closet, it's hanging up there. And I'm like, of course, it probably doesn't fit now, but hey, I would like to, put it on. But it's just something special. I mean, veterans, whether, I mean, a spouse too, hey, you guys are with us, through the thick of everything. So, I mean, it's not, you don't discredit anybody. So we all go through those trials and tribulations and regardless of where you're stationed at, I mean, you create a brotherhood and a sisterhood for life. So, that's very, very important.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. So, what resources have been most useful to you in your job or your transition, even for you, Chelsea, as a spouse, right? What resources have you found valuable to really had an impact as far as your lifestyle?
Yeah, and funny enough, I was a client of Hire Heroes USA before I was a transition specialist. I was facing just a career change, was looking for something different, but I had no idea what that looked like. And then coupled with a PCS kind of thrown into the mix, I was really feeling lost. I think a lot of spouses kind of feel that way too. Just, okay, what do I do? I
Yeah.
can't control the situation. I'm not necessarily choosing to just like pick up and move. What next? And so I found that, Hire Heroes was just such an important part of helping me figure out what's next for myself, for my career, that it just kind of all happened so naturally. And I think the besides Hire Heroes, just other resources available. There's so many other veteran service organizations out there. I urge clients all the time, utilize every service possible that is available to you, whether you're a veteran, military spouse, you're still active duty. There are so many resources available to you, whether it's on your base or in your community. Just search and find it, and find groups that are like you. There's military spouse groups on LinkedIn, on Facebook, from people who are experiencing the same thing. You can really find that group that is going to help you through it.
Yeah, I completely agree. Roger, what about you?
My story is similar to Chelsea's. Uh, prior to become, I got out in 2018 from Indiana, retired out, and then I came to Texas, and I did start as a client. And it's funny, my boss was my transition specialist. So it's crazy how it all comes back full circle. But
Yeah.
we'll get there. We'll get there in a second. So she we kept in contact, and I was fortunate and blessed to be able to pursue my education. So 2018 I started going back to school here in San Antonio, and completed one degree. Well, I said, you know what, might as well just keep going. And like I said, I was blessed and completed my graduate degree not too long ago. And definitely it was a challenge jumping into the workforce. I applied to many jobs. um, I didn't have too much success, I guess, because I had the education but not the experience, which we hear from a lot of our veterans to date. Fast forward, saw a job posting online for Hire Heroes USA, um, reached out and did the interview, and was successful and got the position. Love what I do. We help veterans on a consistent basis every day, um, just giving them general knowledge on professional services that they can use and be successful. That's what the end state is.
Yeah, I love one incredible story, and being able
Thank
to have that full circle of being able not only to be hired by your transition counselor, but then being able to come back and pay it forward. I think for me is, and Chelsea, you mentioned it too, is finding those groups, finding those networks that you can have that commonality, but also use that as platforms to be able to create opportunities and open doors for you. To me, when I was transitioning, I didn't realize how much I didn't know. I thought that I was so prepared. I mean, I checked all the markers. I attended my TAPS program early, like they recommended, early and often, and I did research. I translated my skills to what I thought was going to be the equivalent of what would be equivalent for me in the workforce, and I felt that according to the checklist that I was given, I had done everything that I was supposed to do to be prepared. And then the reality came. The reality came of now facing the workforce and facing the interviews and recognizing how much I didn't know. And it was in that moment I said, okay, well, what do I do? Right? Because I can choose to do nothing and become a victim, or I can now start to kind of lean into it and to become curious about what options and possibilities are out there. And that's when networking became really, really a huge asset for me. If I tell people all the time, your network is your net worth. And if you are not gauging with people who are able to really advocate and sponsor for you, you're missing out on possibilities and opportunities, most importantly. And I think that that's really the biggest thing that I had to learn, and the biggest resource that helped me was navigating and networking, speaking to people who were not doing what I was doing. So meaning that if my battle buddy was transitioning with me, I had to speak outside of that circle. I had to become uncomfortable and to be comfortable in that thought, and realizing that this is not going to be something that is like anything that I've done in the last 20 years, but I have to realize that I have to trust in my skills of what I've done, but also being able to step outside of my comfort zone and start to network outside of the people that did what I did, if that makes sense.
No, definitely. I 100% agree. You are an advocate of yourself, and you do have to, put that right foot forward and just go for it. So, I mean, that makes total sense. So, thank
Yeah.
you.
No, thank you. Chelsea, I think, as spouses, although we understand that there are challenges that spouses face, and what is something or what advice would you give to people, or would you want people to know about the challenges that spouses have?
There's a lot.
Yeah.
I, oh, where do
She's
I
like, how
start?
much time do we have?
Yeah, okay, let me time myself really quick. I don't get too off track. Um, I think the biggest thing that I wish people understood, especially when I was job seeking, was everyone's experience as a military spouse is going to be different.
Mm,
I think a lot of times there is still that misconception that military families move every year or maybe every 2 years. And that's it. We're just kind of bouncing around all the time. We're in one place. We don't really fully unpack and we just keep going. And while that might be true for some folks, oftentimes it's 3, 4, 5, even longer. I've experienced it. I have a lot of people that I know that are at their duty stations for 4, 5, 6 years. And I think a lot of folks who are not in the military or aren't the significant other of somebody in the military don't necessarily realize that it isn't as frequent as a lot of people think. We're not just picking up and moving every 12 months. There really can be a period where we are staying in one place. And I think if more people knew that, there might be a lot more understanding why military spouses find that the job search can be a little frustrating. They don't want necessarily an employer in their interview to find out that they're military because they're going to go, oh, wait. Oh, I wonder if they think that I'm going to move next year. Oh, I might not get the job because do they think I'm not going to stick around for very long? And in reality, they could be there for 4 or 5 years. You don't know. And for the most part, I think a lot of people in the community understand that and say, oh, I totally get it. And I think that's why, kind of to switch topics a little bit, why remote work for military spouses has been so popular, because then it doesn't necessarily matter for the most part if you are still staying in the US. You can pick up and move if you need to, but still maintain your own career and keep that going.
yeah, I love that. And it's funny, although in the military, I was a career counselor, and I engaged in spouses, especially in those moments where the service member is like, I'm not going to reenlist. And then you have the spouses like, you need to tell my husband or my significant other that they're going to reenlist, right? And so I've had interactions with spouses throughout my career, but now having interactions with spouses on the other side now, and seeing the story that I didn't see before, and being able now to have a different perspective of the narrative and realize why some of those decisions that was made in the military were so imperative, because they had to maintain a certain quality of life, and recognizing the importance of it. So now when I get to speak to spouses now, and I see the struggle, and you see the gaps, you see the voids in the resumes. I think that is really important, and I love the way that you recognize you mentioned is that do not use your biases to discredit someone who would be absolutely fully qualified for that position that they can fill today. And I think
Absolutely.
it's yeah, and I think it's important that you recognize that, because the skills that veterans have are just as much as spouses are able to provide, if not more. Highly educated, highly qualified, intellectual, capable um, employees that can fill positions and understand that lifestyle. So it's almost like they come dual headed.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Roger, with you, I think that in the position that you serve now, what are some of the advice that you want to have transitioning service members understand? What are some actions that you would want them to take as they start to prepare for transition?
So I do hear this a lot that there's a lot of military members regardless of the branch, they feel like they haven't had enough time to prepare.
Mm.
What I would stress is that you know, get in touch with our program, Hire Heroes USA. You could do that a year out. I mean, you do taps, and I'm using the Army because I was in the Army as
Cool.
an example. Roger that. So I mean, yeah, you get to, start. You kind of have an inclination of when you're going to get out, and then you submit your paperwork for approval to get out. Everybody's already starting to bless off on that. So I just think that there just needs to be some discussion, as far as with the military members and their leaders to say, hey, we know that you're on the lost roster. We acknowledge it. What can we do to support you rather than, the mission is always first. I got it, but we're talking about people's lives here, and
Mm.
moving forward, you know, you can't really facilitate getting out the correct way if you're downrange and you come back for 30 days. Now you're already stressed. You were stressed to begin with, and your now your stress level is 100. It's 1,000%. Let's just
Yeah.
use that as an example. So, your hurry up status, trying to get all your professional resume stuff like that done. Because I mean, you got to check the block. Of course, I got it. You got to do a resume for so taps and all that, and it might seem rushed, and then you get out and you don't have a plan. So my biggest advice is, start early, formulate a plan, work with us. We can help you out. If you just don't have anything, uh, we'll take care of you. you know, um, we're going to give you a professional resume build. Services. We're career coaches. We do that on a daily basis. We help everybody out. I had a gentleman the other day that said, "Hey, I don't know what I want to be," and I said, "I don't know what you want to be either, but I'm going to help you out. We're going to work together. This is it's a process." So I just say, just take that initial step, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I love that. And you're right, because at the end of the day, you don't know what you don't know. And
Mhm.
I think that we all can agree that um, being on the receiving end and recognizing how big the workforce is, it's overwhelming, and it can be overwhelming for service members who've done this and been in the military lifestyle for so long, and now they come out of that and expect to figure it out almost overnight. And I know that some of the struggles and one of the biggest struggles that service members have as they transition is translating their skill. And I know I feel like I'm going rogue here, right? But I feel like you both can, really speak on this, especially being that you're actively engaged in the transition part of it. So when we're talking about translating skills, how do you help service members and spouses to to help understand what they've done in the military and how do they make it relevant for today's workforce?
So articulation of skills is big because they're employers, they don't know what somebody's done, with the verbiage of the military. So it is, a lot of our veterans do provide their resume, and it may just have some, even if it's a shell, it has some information on there, and we can build off of that. So you know I think that's a big plus, is when you provide that, because just like we talked about earlier, we don't know the person like they know themselves.
Hmm.
So if it was a small sentence, we can build off of that. But if it's something that's not there, then it's kind of hard to, like, um, to pull and extract, because I don't know you, you know you, and help me know you. That's my biggest thing. So, and I mean, like I said, it's a collaboration on all sides, and the end goal is to get a professional resume, and get it get a career. Anybody can get a job, let's be honest with that. But if your intentions are to get a career, then let's put in the work and get it done together, and we'll see you at the finish line. So
Ah, well said, Roger. I love that.
thank
Chelsea, how do you help spouses create a narrative for the gaps? and prepare them for interviews to make them confident? Because I think that's a lot of the steps that sometimes people lack is the confidence. Like, I don't know if I meet that, or I haven't had so many years of this experience. How do you help build that confidence?
Yeah, and I think that what is so unique about Hire Heroes is that everything is individualized. So
Mm,
I am treating every client individually. Everyone's situation is different. And so I really like to start off with, okay, where are you at in your job search? Do you think you want to make a career change? Okay, let's work that. Do you want to stay in the same field, but you have to move across the country? Okay, let's just polish that resume up. Let's really get that going. And it really just depends on what they need and helping them learn their own worth, essentially, especially with those large career gaps. They go, oh well, I haven't worked in whatever amount of years. And, sometimes they feel a little discouraged by that. And it's kind of up to us to pick them up and go, well, no, that doesn't define you. Your employment gaps on your resume are not who you are as a person, as an employee. Let's work on this. And if it's a matter of, I want to make a total pivot, and I don't know if I have the skill set or the experience needed, I really like to break it down with them and go, okay, let's look at some job descriptions. What about this job excites you? Because like
mm,
Roger says, do you want a career? Because that's where we really need to do that digging and go, okay, well, let's see, what skills do you have that transfer over? And if you need some education experience, is there something that you need to kind of fill that gap? And that's where our career counseling comes in, where we match our clients with professional volunteers in that industry that they can ask those questions. And so I feel like we are consistently providing resources to really empower our clients to make those career pivots or to jump back into the workforce.
I love that. And I think it's so important that people realize that it's a process, it's a journey when you're going through transition. And there are going to be people that you meet on the way that you're going to connect and be able to build relationships. And there are going to be people who really help you jumpstart your career. But at the end of the day, you have to be able to trust in yourself. I tell people to trust in your experience, right? And to be excited about the future, because it's a balance, and you need to be able to be excited and just lean into people like Roger and yourself that are going to help you get to that point and help them learn themselves in the journey. Because I'll tell you what, I'm still figuring it out myself too. I mean, I'm not going to lie. There are some
Aren't we
days
all?
oh my gosh, there are some days that I've had anxiety, right? If I had to be transparent with you, right? Because there are some moments where I feel like it's like apples and watermelons with the military and the private sector. And so I tell people, like, it's okay to not be okay, but just lean into the people who are there to help you get through the process, because I'm still figuring out this transition thing, and I'm a year and a half out, and every time I think that I figured it out, transition has a way of doing a gut punch and tell me to go sit in the corner and keep learning. So I appreciate that. I think for me, with being in the position that I am at Aston Carter, and being able to understand, one, how big the workforce is was the biggest reality for me, the biggest eye opener for me. But how do we take that opportunity, and how do we make it where it becomes relevant to the population that we're serving, right? So what are those things that excite our transitioning service members, our military spouses, and then creating opportunities to increase awareness. It is so easy to become overwhelmed with the resources and all the things that are thrown at you as you're transitioning. And I think that it's okay for people to know that take your time. You don't have to make your answers or to make decisions overnight, and to sleep on it, and to think on it, right? Because it is overwhelming. It's still overwhelming even after transition. So to be careful with that, and to be okay with taking your time. I have a story that I really want to share. Again, another rogue moment. Sorry, guys. I'm having squirrel moments, but I had a service member. His background was MI, right, military intelligence, and he was transitioning, and he was thinking that the only way he was going to get hired was through the government. The only way, because I'm MI, the only job that's going to hire me was government sector. And he struggled to get into the government sector. And then all of a sudden he reached out to me because obviously we're a staffing agency. And he was like, I just need something. Like at this point, I'm desperate. I need something. Looked at his background and I said, okay, fine. And then I pulled up jobs for banking industry, right? And I love this story because it's my favorite story, right? And he was looking, he was like, I'm not a banker. I don't work in the banking industry. And I was just like, yes, but look at this job description. And I pulled up the job description, and almost the skill sets that they were asking for almost aligned perfectly to what he did as an Intel analyst, because the job was a business analyst for a banking industry, money laundering. So once he was able to kind of look through that and see the relation between his experience and what they're looking for, he was like, I would have never even considered this opportunity. And I think that it's fair to say that so many opportunities are missed because we're told what we should be doing after we get out. And I think it's important that service members expand their mind and be willing and open to new opportunities, even if it sounds like it's completely left wing. That was my moment, I promise. No more tangents for me, guys. I'm done.
No, it's a great story. Thank you for sharing. I, I, I mean, we do come across, a lot of veterans that like that on a daily basis, and the biggest concern is just basically articulation of their skills. They want to make sure, and you'd be surprised how much we look on LinkedIn daily. I'm on there.
Mhm.
Um, Great platform. I've told a lot of my veterans on the initial assessment. I said, uh, "How's your LinkedIn, set up right now?" And they're like, "It's non-existent." And I said, "Well, we're big proponents of that, so I suggested, you get it fired back up, spin it up, and while I'm, creating your professional resume, I would like to connect with you because, that's it's a easy, super simple way for us to communicate. And if you have any concerns along the process, you can, definitely reach out to me." Um, and so they do. But and then we send them the leads after that. In fact, two leads that correspond with the job description they're looking for, a professional summary, I should say,
Mm.
more so. And we get a lot of feedback. Um, you know, it's it's just it's time that if you put into yourself and you seem motivated, then it's reciprocating to us too, because we know that you care about that. And we're not just here to just give you a product. We're going to follow up with you for sure.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not just our job. We actually do care about every single one of our clients. Um, so, you agree? Oh, you
Yeah.
could say some, Chelsea, out there.
Yeah, I tell my clients all the time, like, I'm not just going to give you a resume and then disappear. I'm
Yeah,
here to check in on you and really be that person in your corner throughout this whole process. And you don't need to feel like you're doing this alone, because this already can be a very stressful time, regardless of where you're at in your job search. So, keep us in mind anytime you have a question. It doesn't need to be in, an email or a LinkedIn message. If you're just really trying to troubleshoot something on your resume, or you have a question about an application, that's totally fine. This is what we're here for. This is what we do every day. And I think, kind of like what Roger touched on, this is more than just a product. We genuinely care about our clients and our mission.
definitely.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks for sharing that. And I will end that on my note. I think one, I appreciate being on this platform with you both, and I know that the service members and spouses that come through the program are extremely lucky to have individuals such as yourself who are driven and committed to being able to really help in some cases the most complicated, difficult points in people's lives. So thank you for what you guys continue to do for the community, and I appreciate that. And for me, I think that on the note with Aston Carter, I didn't know about Aston Carter before I came to Aston Carter. So I just encourage individuals to continue to expand your horizon as you're transitioning, regardless of whatever stage you are in. Don't fall into complacency, and continue to push yourself to strive and to open up those opportunities that you don't even know are there, because I think that's where the magic really starts to happen. So, thank you both. This was incredible. I didn't realize I was going to have so much fun. I'm sorry for roguing out on you, but I really enjoyed just having an honest conversation about how can we do better to help our community. So thank you.
No, thank you too, Samara. It was fun. I appreciate
Thanks
it.
for having us.